Every 4 years, the people of the United States elect their president, but perhaps this is a shocking reality, that the elected president might not truly be the one in power in the country. Behind the scenes, various hidden forces shape politics, wage wars, and even control the global economy. So in this video, we will reveal who truly controls the United States, from powerful political lobbies, Wall Street giants, media empires, all the way to the mysterious deep state. What you're about to hear may forever change the way you see this country. Keep watching. In the United States, the presidency is often portrayed as the most powerful position in the world. But in reality, there are forces far more influential than this individual. Forces that are not elected by the people, yet capable of deciding who wins, who falls, and what foreign policies are implemented. These names are no strangers to Washington. This force is known as lobbyists. Among the most powerful is AIPAC, the pro-Israel lobby, which reportedly spent over $100 million during the 2024 election to ensure that candidates who supported their agenda remained in Congress. According to reports from The Guardian and Common Dreams, that money was used to take down progressive lawmakers like Jamal Bowman, who boldly criticized Israel. Such an amount makes AIPAC one of the biggest players in U.S. politics, more influential than many legitimate political parties. Aside from shaping U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East, they also send a clear message: oppose them, and your political career ends. And this is the frightening part. The peak of political power in a country hailed as a champion of democracy is actually controlled by massive lobbying funds operating from the shadows. But AIPAC isn't the only powerful lobbyist in the U.S. There's also the NRA, the National Rifle Association, a gun lobby that has managed to keep the status quo despite hundreds of mass shootings every year. According to Open Secrets, they pour millions of dollars into every election cycle, ensuring gun control laws are never passed. Even when the public demands reform after each tragedy, their voices are drowned out by the NRA, which controls dozens of members of Congress. Then there's Big Pharma, pharmaceutical giants that spend billions on political campaigns to keep drug prices high. Reuters reports that the U.S. pays the highest drug prices in the world, but efforts to control these costs always fail, blocked by pharmaceutical lobbyists. So here's the big question. Is the highest power in America really held by the president, or is the president just a tool for the ultra-wealthy elite? And here's where the real secret begins. If lobbyists can control a nation's policies, then who controls America's global financial flow? If political lobbyists can buy influence in Congress, then corporate powers on Wall Street control the lifeblood of the U.S. economy and the world's. Names like BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are rarely mentioned in the news, yet these three financial giants manage over $20 trillion in assets, more than the entire U.S. economy. According to Bloomberg, BlackRock alone handles over $10 trillion in investment funds, making them a silent player with stakes in nearly every major company, from Apple to ExxonMobil. In simple terms, they own a chunk of America. Their power lies not just in money, but in the influence it brings. With shares in thousands of companies, BlackRock and Vanguard can vote on major corporate decisions, including global business strategy, tech direction, and environmental policy. In many cases, they can decide whether a company rises or falls with a single decision in the boardroom. According to the Financial Times, the dominance of the Big Three gives them more voting power than any government on Earth. In the tech world, dominance belongs to giants like Google, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, and Apple. Combined, these five are worth over $10 trillion. They don't just rule the digital marketplace, they possess the data of billions. Every time we search on Google, shop on Amazon, or scroll through Facebook, our data is collected, processed, and used to shape ads, trends, even political views. The New York Times once highlighted how the Cambridge Analytica scandal exposed this vulnerability, where user data was misused to influence elections. And as these companies form the backbone of the U.S. economy and communication, the question grows louder. Is the U.S. government being run by them? If the answer is yes, then this power doesn't stop at stocks or technology. It extends to the most dangerous heart of America, the Pentagon. If Wall Street's money controls the economy, then the Pentagon's weapons control war. As early as 1961, President Dwight Eisenhower had already warned of the dangers of the military-industrial complex. A close alliance between government, the military, and defense contractors. Today, that warning has become a reality. In 2022 alone, the United States spent over $877 billion on defense, according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. That figure represents nearly 40% of total global military spending. A large portion of it flows to major defense companies like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, and Northrop Grumman. The Washington Post once reported that billion-dollar contracts are awarded to these companies annually, making them key players in shaping U.S. foreign policy. Lockheed Martin, for example, earned over $66 billion in 2023, with more than 70% coming directly from U.S. government contracts. Raytheon, on the other hand, produces air defense systems like Patriot and NASAMS, which were sent to Ukraine after the war with Russia began. Every time a new conflict erupts, the stocks of these companies skyrocket, profits surge, and weapons demand increases. To them, war is not a tragedy. It's a profitable business opportunity. This relationship is no longer a secret. Many former military officials become defense industry executives, while many defense CEOs are appointed as government advisors. This cycle ensures a steady flow of contracts and guarantees an aggressive foreign policy. So, the U.S. war machine never stops. As Foreign Affairs once wrote, the U.S. defense industry has become a parallel economy, thriving on fear and global conflict. The U.S. often claims to fight for peace, but in reality, peace brings no profit in Washington. So if war benefits too many people, who would dare to stop it? This brings us to another, even more silent and dangerous force. If the military-industrial complex is the engine of war, then the deep state is often portrayed as the brain, controlling the nation's direction without public mandate. The term refers to a network of security institutions like the CIA, FBI, NSA, and Pentagon, which operate with powers far beyond what the public knows. They work in the shadows, running covert operations, toppling foreign governments, and shaping foreign policy outside of democratic processes. American history is full of proof showing these agencies interfering in the affairs of nations around the world. The CIA, for instance, helped overthrow Iran's government in 1953, backed the Chilean coup in 1973, and trained armed groups in Afghanistan during the 1980s. None of these actions had public approval, yet they shaped global geopolitics for decades. The Washington Post once wrote that the CIA has a long record of reshaping global political landscapes according to U.S. interests, not the people's vote. As for the NSA, its role is controlling global information networks. The Edward Snowden scandal in 2013 revealed how the NSA intercepted communications of billions worldwide, including leaders of allied nations. The revelation shocked the world, proving that U.S. surveillance wasn't limited to enemies, but included close friends. According to The Guardian, Snowden described the NSA as a total surveillance machine, capable of tracking anyone, anytime. These agencies are powerful because of their enormous budgets. Leaked documents in 2013 showed the black budget for secret intelligence operations exceeded $80 billion annually. That's enough to fund an entire small country. But the U.S. spends it without full oversight from Congress or the people. And here lies the contradiction. The United States constantly preaches democracy and transparency, yet the real power lies in unelected agencies operating in the shadows. If these security agencies can act without limits, is the president truly the highest leader? Or just a public face while real power lies elsewhere? And this power doesn't only come from within. The U.S. is often seen as acting independently, but in reality, it's deeply tied to global interests. The clearest example is its relationship with Israel. Every year, Washington sends over $3.8 billion in military aid to Tel Aviv, making Israel the largest recipient of U.S. foreign aid. According to Reuters, this amount symbolizes a political contract, ensuring U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East always favors Israel. Critics say America's refusal to call for a ceasefire in Gaza, for instance, is more influenced by Israeli lobbying than the voices of its own people. Beyond Israel, the US is also bound to NATO, a military alliance that now includes 32 countries. The Ukraine war is the biggest proof of how US foreign policy aligns with NATO's interests. BBC reported that since the Russia-Ukraine conflict in 2022, the US has sent over $70 billion in military aid to Ukraine. This is an enormous sum, larger than many European countries' entire defense budgets. The question is this truly about defending Ukraine's democracy or about preserving US dominance within NATO? Yet global influence doesn't come only from allies. The United States now faces serious challenges from the BRICS bloc, led by China and Russia. With a combined economy larger than the G7 in purchasing power terms, BRICS is increasingly bold in challenging the dollar's dominance. Bloomberg reports that over 20 countries, including Saudi Arabia and Iran, the world's top oil powers, are seeking full BRICS membership. If this happens, US influence over the global financial system will begin to erode. Here lies America's dilemma. It must maintain allies like Israel and NATO to preserve geopolitical power, but at the same time face a rising threat from new powers seeking to end its dominance. In this situation, the US may look like it's leading, but it is also being pushed by powerful external forces. The real question is the United States truly free to choose its own path? The truth is, the answer doesn't lie solely in political or global power. It also depends on who controls the flow of information. If global forces can bind US foreign policy, then the media becomes the weapon to shape public opinion. In reality, only a handful of major corporations control the majority of news outlets in the country. Names like CNN, Fox News, the New York Times, and the Washington Post are often seen as independent, but in truth, they are owned or influenced by conglomerates with political and economic interests. According to the Reuters Institute, over 80% of Americans get their news from just a small number of media networks, making narrative control extremely effective. These media outlets shape how the public sees the world. For example, during the Iraq War in 2003, the New York Times admitted in a retrospective report that its coverage was heavily biased in supporting the government's narrative about weapons of mass destruction, a narrative that was eventually proven false. As a result, millions of Americans believed the war was justified, even though it was built on manipulated and inaccurate information. Beyond media, there are also think tanks, such as the Council on Foreign Relations, Brookings Institution, and Heritage Foundation. These institutions are not elected by the people, but their ideas and reports have become key references for policymakers. Many former diplomats, generals, and corporate elites sit on these boards, serving as a bridge between government, military, and the business world. Politico once wrote that think tanks in Washington act like policy factories, producing narratives that politicians and media later repeat until they become official truths. This is where the circle of power becomes complete. Media shapes public perception, think tanks provide the arguments, and politicians use them to justify their policies. The people think they are making informed choices, but in reality, the information has already been filtered and colored by those in power. This is the greatest irony of a nation that constantly champions democracy. The United States, while claiming to be free, is entangled in layers upon layers of vested interests. It claims to lead the world, but is forced to submit to both internal and external powers, none of which were ever chosen by the people. Every time we see a president stand confidently in front of the cameras, delivering speeches, the real question we should be asking isn't, what does he want to do, but rather, who allowed him to do it? Because behind every major decision, there is a hidden hand, more powerful than the vote of any ordinary citizen. And that brings us to the conclusion. Who really controls the United States? The answer is not one president, not one party, not even the people. The answer is a coalition of political elites, corporations, military powers, and global interests, moving silently, shaping a system that cannot be overthrown by ordinary elections.